psychosocial phenomenon, that it's part of our human need, this consumption need that we have, and the consumption of experiences plays into this kind of opposing but parallel need to differentiate ourselves and to also create like a strong um, bond so that we can share experiences with people but also feel unique. um, and I think like the experience economy, the experience machine allows us to do that for a fee. So then we go on to talk about Baudrillard. I'm just recapping here, letting my brain warm up a little bit. And then he says that he doesn't quite say anything about mimetic desire, but he's saying that there is almost a simulacrum, that we don't actually really have this fulfillment when we do things through the experience society. We have this kind of pseudo fulfillment. We have this kind of like Baudrillardian simulacra of fulfillment. We're not like deeply enjoying anything. And the experience that I shared, the thing that I was relating this to was like, oh gosh, some of these like tourism things, like ecotourism type stuff. Like you think like, oh, it's so cool. I get to do this ecotourism. So, for example, I was looking at this elephant sanctuary in Chiang Mai, and you can go stay the night in an elephant sanctuary, and the elephants wake you up in the morning. So you get the simulacra of kind of being around these like Asiatic elephants, and you get that experience, and it feels kind of cool. And there's not that many people that have experienced it, but you and whoever you experience with it kind of get this special thing. But it's a simulation of this kind of happiness. It's like a simulation of this idea of like beauty and eternity kind of coming together, that you get this really beautiful moment that it is constructed, but people are fine with it. They're like, oh, it's fine. I don't care. Like it's this, it's, it's, it works for them. Um, so let me continue reading. Let me see where I left off. Did I leave off on page 7, you guys? Hold on. We went through talking about Marx, and how this creates a false consciousness and reinforces bourgeois ideologies and keeps people from really waking up. So the thing I was thinking about last night is this can be a really totalizing thing. If everything you experience is just a false consciousness or some false um, ideology, false truth, false need, then how do you ever know what's real? How do you ever differentiate between bourgeois ideology and what's good for everyone? It's really hard to differentiate that. And so that's the thing I wanted to be careful of, is like a kind of totalizing view that everything you do is basically just part of the experience society. Okay. So hold on, let me see. Okay, where did we leave off here? We left off here saying Heath and Potter's critique of Marxist approaches is interesting here, insofar as it highlights the tensions that exist around the role of consumption in social change. If the problem of capitalism was that it exploited the working classes and in the process created poverty, why shouldn't culture and indeed forms of popular consumption provide a way out in this regard? So we talked about like, oh, it's great because ecotourism is bringing money into Thailand. Like, and if it lifts people out of poverty, in theory, this should be great. Why isn't it? And the quote is, it was precisely the failure of the capitalist system to provide the workers with goods that gave them the reason to overthrow the system in the first place. Thus, the critique of consumerism comes perilously close to criticizing capitalism for satisfying the workers too much. They're stuffed and they can't be bothered to go out and overthrow the system anymore. But this poses the question, why would they want to? So if you are satisfied, if you are, so they're saying like, oh, the experience society and the consumption of all these things keeps people sated so that they don't have a desire to go out and overthrow the system. And why would you want to, anyways, if you feel full, if you feel satisfied, if you're getting all of your needs and wants met, why would you want to do that? There's something to be said for this argument, but perhaps what it does neglect is the psychosocial dimension of consumption. In his work, Adorno basically argues that exchange value has come to supplant use value. The working classes effectively desire the very deceptions that consumption depends upon, even though they are transparent to them. So we know that it's fake. So you know that the elephant sanctuary in Chiang Mai is fake, but you're like, um, I still want that experience. Like, as everybody else gets to hang out with elephants, why don't I get to hang out with elephants? We can knowingly consume a product precisely because we do not feel duped by it, right? So you're like, I know it's fake, so I'm just gonna do it anyways, because ironically, or what have you. Maybe not even ironically, but it feels like with that knowledge, and that awareness, it feels like permission. Like, oh, I know it's fake. Oh, I know it's marketing. I know it's a ploy, but like, I still want to do it. Isn't it okay if I still do that? Stupid question out of scope. How do you find out about these books? That's a good question. I think, you're in like these circles and people talk about books a lot. But also sometimes you find out about an author and then you read other things of theirs. This book in particular, Anton recommended. So also, all of like everybody in the book club recommends books, and I put them all on a list. And at the end of the year, last year, I went through and kind of picked books that I thought would fit a theme. And so there were several of these books I'd been wanting to read, and several of them that kind of came up because of the theme. There's a few authors, like for example, like Byung Chul Han. We're not reading. I don't think we're reading any. No, we're not reading anything of his this year. But in looking at his work, he cites other people as well. And so sometimes you'll read someone who cites other people. So like Byung Chul Han's been in my thought process a lot because Jared Henderson talks about him a lot. Muller, who we were reading 2 months ago, talks a lot about Charles Taylor. So I read a little bit Charles Taylor. So that's kind of how it works. Yeah, it never ends. I know. Irony as an I thought you meant my reading list never ends. Irony as a mask for the social embarrassment of authentic experience. Oh, yes. Yes. I think that's a very good point, Jared. That we sometimes use irony to, like, cover up the cringe. We're like, "Ah, it's ironic," like, I remember okay, so when I'm trying to think when Barney came out. Remember Barney the Purple Dinosaur? Barney came out probably when I was, like, 11 or 12 or whatever, and I had siblings. My youngest sibling was 3. And I remember one of them watching it, and I remember it was really cool to make fun of Barney at the time. But the truth is it was really kinda sweet. Baby Bob I mean, I like to eat apples and bananas. I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. What a wonderful song for a child, And so a lot of the, like, older children would kind of be like, "Psh, I don't like that," Or, I think Power Rangers was popular at that time, and motherfucker, I came home to watch Power Rangers every goddamn day, but you're also coming out of this age where you're like, "No, I gotta be cool. I'm a teenager now. I can't be watching no cartoons. I can't be watching no baby shit." And so to hide your embarrassment, you kind of make fun of Barney and Power Rangers ironically. We do that as adults all the time. We do that as adults because we are, like, embarrassed of the things that we actually like, and I think it's even more so as adults because you're not supposed to like certain things. Certain things are supposed to be universally cringy or universally bad. For example, R. Kelly. Whenever Remix to Ignition comes on, you better believe I'm singing that song. That's me and my homegirl's song, and like I'm supposed to not like it. Also, feeling on your booty, like when that shit plays at the skating rink, I'm into it, but I'm not supposed to be into it. I don't care anymore, mostly. There are some things I feel like I care about, and it's not to say we don't ever get embarrassed. But when I'm, like, healthy mentally, I don't give a fuck. So I don't care about irony as a mask for social embarrassment if I'm doing well. You know what I'm saying? I definitely got bullied by my Gen X siblings for watching Barney. And they fine. Yeah, exactly. When Pitbull comes on, now Pitbull is something I cannot abide by. My niece and I were talking about this the other day. She loves Pitbull. She went to the Pitbull concert dressed up as Pitbull. It's fucking hilarious. But I'm not gonna get loose tonight. Like I fucking hate Pitbull, and I can't tell you why. I just do. That's why I drop the line. But you know what, Crispy? If you like Pitbull, you enjoy it. I don't want to yuck your yum. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Um, so Adorno, the working classes desire the deceptions that consumption depends upon, even though they're transparent to them. Yeah. So we need the working class needs these kinds of like they need the Carnival cruise. Okay. The working class needs their fucking Carnival cruise. They need their trip to Mexico or wherever the fuck they're going. People is like when you put cheap wine in a blender. People's really bad. I and that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm not yucking anybody's yum here today. I'm not doing it. You can't make me do that because I hate Pitbull. Okay. So we depend upon the deceptions that consumption we desire the deceptions that consumption depends on. So it's like we don't care if it's fake. It's this statement right here is the statement from the Matrix. You know, when we the guy from the Matrix is eating the steak and he's like, I don't care if it's not real. I want this fucking steak. We can knowingly consume a product because we do not feel duped by it. And it's like it maybe even adds to the satisfaction knowing that you know the truth. Like I know the steak's not real, and so that makes it even better. Um, the way we seek to go about defining ourselves through consumption has certainly changed through time. And this book is concerned with the way this has helped to intensify the ideological power of consumer capitalism. Indeed, as Sale, CL, Sale has argued, in a world characterized by a need for constant self improvement, in a world in which the orthodoxy of choice remains largely unspoken, and unreal yet unassumed, we become the victims of a way of self perception in which we are, perhaps regrettably, the masters of our own fate. We feel we can choose. Okay, so because we have, and there's no mention of Heidegger here, but like because we have this framework for self improvement, even if it feels false, there is something to. We have this need to constantly self improve. Actually, there's nothing said about Heidegger here because this isn't really about the framework. Because then you'd have to partially admit that the framework is objectively true, that there is some room for self improvement, and I think that's the last thing they want to do here. The last thing they want to do um, is say that there is some actual objective self improvement. So here's me being critical of this as well. I think there can be a semi objective self improvement if we set our goals to say, like, let's say, okay, so I started a new routine at the gym, right? And I set a goal. I have not set it yet, but I my hip thrusts were what did I max at? I don't even know if it was considered my max. It was my first time back at it. And I thought I was gonna start at 45. What did I do? 45 plus. It was 70. Is it 80? 40? Was it 70 on each side? So I started at 140 and I thought I was going to get to 140, but actually I started at 140. So I'm looking to get up to like 225 for my hip thrusts, which I could do, maybe a few of them, I think. Um, but I'm trying to burn out. And so objectively, I can build muscle and get better at that. So that self improvement framework can be empirical and somewhat objective. So I can make progress towards that. But what they're saying is, in a world in which the orthodoxy of choice remains largely unspoken and unreal yet unassumed, we become the victims of a way of self perception in which we are the masters of our own fate. So the problem is we think we can change everything. We think we can choose everything. Now, I may be able to, for the most part, improve my hip thrust weight or my squat weight or whatever. Um, but God forbid something happens, I lose my leg. Well, there goes that. I'm not exactly the master of my own fate, but I am um, able to do something with it. So we can choose to a certain extent. It's not quite Sartre's level of freedom, I think, or Sartre's conception of freedom, how much we have. It's just kind of this raw, um, unlimited amount of freedom, but there's a good amount. In today's society, which glorifies choice and the idea that choice is always in people's interests, the problem is not just the scale of choice available, but the manner in which choice is represented. Life choices are described in the same terms as consumer choices. We set out to find the right life as we would the right kind of wallpaper or hair conditioner. The problem is that the idea of rational choice, transferred from the domain of economics, has been glorified as the only kind of choice we have. So it's possible to make irrational choices as well. We are not perfectly rational. Um, and we can't, and this is the problem of like framing this in terms of consumer choices, that we can choose our own destiny, just like we can choose our own dish soap or whatever. And it's not quite that simple. It's not quite that easy. Since this sense of choice is not just about goods or services, it's about the ability to choose ourselves, given that the sports brand Adidas puts it, impossible is nothing. As citizens of a consumer society, we live in a whirlwind of perpetual choice, whether it be education, health, housing, or countless other realms. But the ability to choose is transmuted into an ideology of the self made woman so that we convince ourselves that life is about a series of options and potential transformations, despite the fact that the society in which we live legislates against this. One author that has sought to understand the impact of social change on the self is Elmer Hankis, who argues that the syncretic civilization of the consumer age constitutes an age of paradox in which we are experiencing the apotheosis of the human personality and its simultaneous annihilation. He says, it's the me age and the age of no self at the same time. Seen from one angle, it's the age of the triumphant self actualization, of radical individualism, an age when the human person has yet to become the object of cult, and the ultimate source of values. The object of cult. Yet from the opposite angle, we witness the self's destruction. I think I already read this, but for some reason I feel like I skipped it. It feels weirdly familiar, but not familiar at the same time. The problem for Hankis is at the same time of rapid social change when the individual is bewildered by a sense of uncertainty and self blame, his or her responsibility for self direction is intensified, thereby diluting any sense of freedom they might experience along the way. In an increasingly apparently godless world, I think I skipped some of this, so I did read part of it. Um, while traditional sources of purpose and meaning are in rapid decline, he or she becomes the ultimate, perhaps the only arbiter of his or her own meaning. The implications of this for our understanding of the experience society is the increased value of time, so that our experience of the world is lived through precious moments of intensity. Hundreds of millions of people are looking for an ultimate source of life and meaning, and consumer civilization provides them around the clock with myriad intense and significant moments. Consumer civilization, for its part, offers people some help. It makes them feel the beauty of the moment and the serenity of eternity, and generates in them the illusion that these two unite in a beautiful harmony. Yes, I did read this, and I think it's worth reading again. Hankins goes so far as to describe this age of experience a world without transcendence, where everything needs to be experienced to the full, a necessity if people's existential fears and anxieties are to be assuaged, or if they are to be dazzled and immunized against the growing fear of the emerging civilization. So we need to feel, okay, this is a problem for me in the sense of, like Camus' ideology of absurdism. So if my framework is based on the absurdity of existence, that we can't ever really know, um, the meaning of life. We can't ever really know everything, but we're going to try to press on in spite of that. Then this comes into play when we think about what Camus said. So Camus didn't really give us a lot of rules, but one thing he did say is that we should try to live the absolute most. Now, I don't really agree with this 100%. And first of all, we have to kind of define this. What does it mean? What does it mean to like live the absolute most? Well, he had this thought about quantity, that quantity can turn into quality. And so we should try to have like a lot of experiences, and we should try to do a lot of things. So if we need to do a lot of things and experience everything to the fullest, we need to like live life to the fullest. um, this can be a problem because it can be exploited. Um, and I'm not sure there's much more to say about that, but I just thought it was worth noting. And I think the thing is that if we accept the world as absurd, then our existential fears and anxieties don't need to be assuaged, and we don't need to be dazzled or immunized. Um, we can experience things without needing to have like the commoditization of experience. We can try to experience things outside of that. But I haven't reconciled this yet. This is like an active thought in my mind that will need to be dealt with here. So let me put this in my notes. Hold on, please, for a moment. Yeah, this and the whole Marxist thing about creating oneself. These are two things that I need to kind of like do some thinking on. What's a great book choice? Yes, thank you, thank you. It's all because of my amazing book club members. You're gonna have to remind me your name again. I totally forgot it. It's been 2 weeks and I haven't said it, so I'm so sorry. What do you mean we don't need to be immunized? Well, from what I'm reading here, the the claim is the claim from Miles is that okay, it's really that deal with our existential anxieties and fears. There's a lot of philosophers who think this. Obviously, we have to deal with this. Um, And so, how do we deal with them? Well, we have to cope. We need our fears and anxiety kind of like coped with, dealt with. And I'm not sure why he puts this in quotes. I don't know who says that we need our fears and anxieties to be dazzled and immunized, or we need to be dazzled and immunized against the growing fears of emerging civilization. This sounds like a control tactic. And I don't think we really need that. If you accept the claim that the world is absurd, then you also accept that this uncertainty, and you can kind of just live in it. You don't need to be sedated to deal with the existential anxiety of the world. If you accept this, if you take this in stride, then, why would you ever need to be immunized against that? You know what I'm saying? Okay. By focusing on the impossibility of the good life, the currency that consumption provides becomes essential, and that life is defined by the resources we need in order to reassure ourselves that we belong. Consumption is thus our escape into a world better imagined. In a sense, then, the world of commodified experience in which we find ourselves so readily immersed today is the product of a long term historical process in which the self has become increasingly separated from the world, despite a feeling of the polar opposite. We are independent and yet isolated to the extent that we are obliged to define our own world. Um, so consumption is the way we assuage our existential fears and anxieties, and it creates this kind of alienation, um, but it also creates like a safe distance between us and other people. And I think the other book that we're reading, The Other Experience Society, says that this is kind of a problem, that putting these layers of experiences between us doesn't really cushion us, it distances us. So we'll have to think about that. Um, so Robert David Sack argues that the glittering realm of consumption appears to offer us a world without constraints and without responsibility, a disorienting world in which the consequences of our actions are obscured through our emphasis on a front stage without a backstage to prop it up. The world of experience is both an escape and a means of propping up the self, of legitimizing its morality, and giving a voice to a kind of stability which effectively took it away from us in the first place. The consumption of experience gives and takes. Oh, hey, Jesse. Yes. Okay. Jesse. I will try to remember. I got Jesse, Jacob, Jared. So I will try to remember that. All right. What is experience? So, what is experiential consumption and how has it become so important to the consumer, to how the consumer relates to the society in which he or she lives? There has been a tradition in the cultural and consumer studies of critically engaging with products that may or may not tell us something insightful about the relationship between a consumer artifact, consumption, and social change. Okay, so this is the thing we were talking about yesterday. If you are critical about consuming something, does that change anything? So just hold that question in your mind. Like what we were talking about the whale shark experience or the elephants in Chiang Mai. If you were critical about the experience, does that change anything? So there were these girls who were posting about the whale shark experience in a certain part of Indonesia. And they were like, don't go to this one because they feed the whale sharks and they basically chase them down and they exploit them. This is not an ethical experience. If you want an ethical experience, here's how to do that. So this is the question. How do we know that we're not doing some kind of false consciousness trick where we're going, oh, this is the only way to ethically experience something? Um, and if we are critically or making an attempt at critical evaluation, what is that worth? So we'll keep that in mind. Jared, you say no. I don't know what you're saying no to. Mango Juice, we are reading The Experience Society by Stephen Miles. We started it yesterday. So clearly, there is an experience or experiences involved in consuming such products that, at least insofar as how we consume them, may serve to connect us to the world around us. So it sounds like what Stephen Miles is saying is that there is a point in being critical. PhD Nordic Plus. For example, today we do not consume an iPhone solely on the basis of its functional attributes and qualities. We do so at least in part because the ownership of the iPhone says something about our discernment as consumers, and more importantly, implies that we belong in the same ways as those around us who are also consuming the iPhone. Now, this I disagree with. I'm not an iPhone user, I'm Android, and I do this because of the functionality. And maybe there's a little bit of like an ethical solidarity with Android users or something like that. So maybe to a certain extent, there is a symbolism in it. Your criticism is just a layer of consumption. The consumption still occurs. Yeah, of course, the consumption still occurs. The symbolism or the criticism, is it worth nothing, though, is my question. Is being critical about what you consume worth nothing? And if you say it's worth nothing, you probably agree with Anton on something for the first time ever. If you judge an experience without participating, we call this prejudice. Okay, but what about, and we talked about this yesterday, what about after you have the experience? Is there a time after the experience where you can be critical about it and make an analysis about it? Or do you have to experience it first? Some people have to learn the hard way on certain things too. Like you can tell people all day long, don't touch a hot stove, but some people just got to touch the hot stove. Personally, I like to learn from theory, but there are some things I have to learn the hard way too. It's like EVs, right? We believe we are saving the environment, but at the same time, we're exploiting kids in the Congo who mine the material for the iPhone EVs. That's a great point, Jesse. And yes, this is the exact thing that we're talking about is like, is there a way to ethically consume anything, right? And there's this thought in Marxist circles that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Now, raise your hand in the chat, thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat if you agree with that sentiment. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Thumbs up or thumbs down. I want to see what we think. From the job site, how do you know you're not gay? um, yeah, so that's something that I think in theory, but also there is an element of experience to that, right? You have experienced feelings for women versus feelings for men. And so you're not gay because of your own personal experience, right? But also in theory, you're not like in theory, you're not gay. Like it's not you don't have to test it. You don't have to test it empirically. You don't have to kiss a person of the same sex to know you're not gay, is what I'm saying. Like there are things you can know empirically. Crispy says you have to test it. Did you kiss a boy and you liked it? I don't know. I mean, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying. So you did more than that. Nice. Thumbs down. Hey, Jeff. Oh, wait a second. We got Jesse, Jeff, Jared, Jacob, and don't forget Josh. Where the fuck is Josh been? I want to believe in ethical capitalism, but eventually the profits have to be extracted from somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Mad Philosopher Society, I think you're right. And I don't believe, it's like I don't do the ACAB thing. Like, I don't do ACAB. I don't do no ethical consumption under capitalism because that's impossible. Like, so what is everyone acting unethically until someone acts ethically? It's a paradox and it makes no sense. How can anyone ever act ethically? How could the dictatorship of the proletariat appear if someone is not um, consuming under capitalism? And if your consumption under capitalism leads to the appearance of the dictatorship of the proletariat and then the subsequent disappearance, would that not have been ethical consumption under capitalism? So there's a paradox here, and I'm going to call that the paradox of ethical consumption under capitalism because I don't. How do you get out of capitalism without consuming under capitalism? So this is the thing I was thinking about yesterday about counterinduction. And I think I sent, I only sent it to Anton, but there was this thing that I should do a video about this. I've been feeling in the mood to make videos lately, but Anthony Bourdain was talking about traveling and how is like everybody thinks they're going to experience some enlightenment, and like the enlightenment is like there's no enlightenment, and once you realize that, then you're good, right? And to me, I think there's this kind of counter induction that happens. And this is like Paul Feyerabend. He has a couple concepts like this, where not everything bad is purely bad. Like just because it's bad doesn't mean that it's entirely bad. And the thing that I'm thinking about here is going back to Marcuse, there's this one dimensionality that happens where everything gets funneled into a single file line. And then what happens from there? Well, things aren't static. It doesn't just stay in a single file line unless, of course, you're compressed and you can't escape. But there's always then some pressure that pushes things out and allows for an explosion again. So there's an opening and a closing and oscillation. I think that's just characteristic of life. So I think that kind of counterinduction can happen from allegedly bad things. If things are bad, things are bad. So see, that's where I disagree. I don't think things are all bad, and I don't think anything like this is that dialectical thought where you go, there's always a little sweet in the sour. You know what I mean? A little bitter in the sweet. Like you can't say that that something is like all bad, or like how does pure evil exist if God exists? You know what I'm saying? And if God exists, like then evil shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like evil shouldn't exist. It just doesn't make sense. It can't. It don't work. There's no totalizing thing here. You're just coping with the situation. But if it doesn't favor your survival or production in life, I think that's a half thought. I'll try to read it. If you follow that up, I'll read it afterwards. All right, let's continue. So we're talking about the iPhone. Like, what does consumption, a critical consumption of an iPhone tell us? So the power of the iPhone lies in its symbolism. This provides us with a form of capital that appeases the jagged edges that would otherwise appear in our social relations should we choose to consume an inferior brand. The added value that such products embody in version after version after updated version have been long at the heart of how consumer capitalism reinvents itself. So, the video I posted about the climbers on the New York, the Empire State Building, was thinking about how capitalism reinvents itself. And I didn't even see the campaign of like all the companies putting things on their flag and trying to like reinvent the stunt and use it for their own purposes. But that is exactly what all of these thinkers mean when they say capitalism reinvents itself. At least it's part of it. How we can turn something, anything, into an ad campaign. um, excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, it's not all bad to consume or to use an iPhone because of its symbolism. Hey, Jacob, what time is it over there? It's a good little after. You must be in for your afternoon nap, sir. We are on page 8 of the Experience Society, just so you know. 6:08. Oh, okay. Okay. He's finna go to dinner. All right. So nobody actually needs the choice of thousands of car models or the apparently endless range of styles of jeans that the market makes available to them. However, this form of commodity exchange is limited in the sense that at least consumers' need for products is finite. Someone may have 200 pairs of training shoes in their collection. They're less likely to own 200 iPhones. The process that this implies is also fairly primitive and steeped in historical precedents. But the emergence of a world of digital consumption and a world that is increasingly deterritorialized in the sense that how you consume is less and less determined by physical space in which you consume, having arguably created a space for radically different kinds of consumption, one in which experience is much more at the heart of the why and how we consume. Airbnb, gaming, escape rooms, Premier League football, craft beer, the revitalization of live comedy, music, celebrity restaurants, lives, themed restaurants, theme parks, Amazon, eBay, all in holidays, cruise ships, box sets, Netflix, and possibly chill. There are if y'all saw the things I saw in Osaka for the chill part of Netflix and chill, you would I don't even know what to say. I never seen the level of selection. I That's all I'm gonna say about that. The creativity, the commodities available for the chill part of Netflix and chill is wild. It's bad when you know the phones have been created to intense labor. Yes, Saga, I agree. There is a very terrible element to a lot of things that happen in the world. But what Jesse was just saying, on the Substack feed, Jesse was saying it's like switching from gas to electric vehicles. Like we think that we're doing something better by going green, right, using electric vehicles, but there's things that happen that those kids in the Congo have to mine for cobalt and lithium for the batteries. So is it lithium they're mining for? Definitely cobalt. Um, so it's like, okay, you're moving away from like the ruining potential futures of everyone on Earth by fracking and causing anthropocentric climate change, but then you're also exploiting child labor to make these batteries. So it's like, is there anything that doesn't contain some level of like horrible exploitation? And I'm also going to refer to the Apple series Pluribus, where the alien species that comes and takes over all of humanity refuses to kill anything because it's like, oh, that's bad or that's negative. We can't kill or harm anything. We can't like pluck a grain of grass. We can't do any of that stuff. And so in that sense, they think that they're it's like this species that is thinking it's like optimizing the amount of harmony in the world or the amount of harmony in the universe. But in reality, it's kind of destroying quite a bit. I'm excited for season 2 of that. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's always trade-offs. Nothing is completely good. We're spreading the capitalistic interest of developing underdeveloped economies. It's exploitative, yes. Yeah, you can ask a question. No problem. Jesse says, Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddhartha Kara is a very important book that everyone should read. Yeah, I mean, it's just like the exploitation in Asian societies to make the fucking phones. It's like, I mean, but again, I asked Jesse, what are we supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? I don't know. Okay, so yes, Amazon, eBay, Netflix, and chill. These are all examples of experiential forms of consumption in which the power of the product to impact upon your life is intensified by your ability as a consumer to effectively guide your own value, to bring the product to life through the narrative that you and apparently only you can bring to it. Let me offer an example. At the time of writing, and from a mere 162 pounds, you can buy a ticket to see Mamma Mia, the party created by ABBA's Bjorn. How the fuck do you say this name? Uvulus? Uvelius? Bjorn? Y'all, I don't know who this fucking ABBA person is. The party is a new and unique entertainment experience that puts you in the heart of the action. I'm not gonna lie. In New York, seeing Masquerade, which was kind of an equivalent to this, but for Phantom of the Opera, that shit was expensive as fuck. And my company, our VP, which I'm not supposed to mention, may or may not have bought tens of thousands of dollars worth of tickets as a company outing. Um, it was lit. It was super cool. I enjoyed that experience thoroughly. And I don't like have a lot of those experiences where I'm like, oh, that was so cool. It was kind of lit. Let's see what he's going to say about this. Then I'll read your comments. Over the course of more than 5 hours, you'll enjoy a spectacular show, a three-course gourmet Mediterranean meal, and an ABBA disco all in one unforgettable evening. I'm going to go, that sounds fun. Such an event is characterized by many of the key dimensions of an experienced society. The event is explicitly about self-gifting. The consumer isn't simply an observer, but an active participant. Thank you, quiet observer. Let's see. In this case, in an escapist world of music-driven nostalgia, we were literally listening to the soundtrack yesterday. It is at least partly the product of an economic strategy. Indeed, for Pine and Gilmore, health, the future health of the economy depends on the effective staging of memorable events. What the fuck? Did I skip a whole line here? Hold on. The experience is manufactured, and it is more than an escape. It is in essence a process of self-illusory validation. The emergence of experience as an essential characteristic of how people consume is not accidental. It is at least partly a product of an economic strategy. Okay, here's what I think is being said here. I pride myself on not falling for shit a lot. Like, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do something lame like that. They got me with Masquerade. They fucking got me. They might have got me with this Mamma Mia shit too. And I think what's being said here is that this is the hook. Like the Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman wrote about this in Thinking Fast and Slow after decades of studying behavioral economics and heuristics. That you are not fucking special. I am not fucking special. Like these psychological hooks they studied are things that are now being used to coerce us. And this is where I need to talk to Simon, that guy on Threads that I was telling you guys about, who reminded me that we shouldn't think about things in like a totalizing framework. But the problem is, how are we supposed to escape our own psychology? when our own psychology has been studied, manipulated, and leveraged against us to force us into a certain uh, mode of action. There is no real escape from that. You can be aware of the heuristics and still not able to like fight against them. Like it's just a thing that's going to happen to you. Like for example, I know that I need glasses. It doesn't mean that I can see without them. Just because I'm aware that I need them. There are certain things that we I know that I have certain like psychological hangups, you know. It doesn't mean that I'm actively like fixed, you know. I know I've been in therapy for certain things. I've become aware of certain behaviors and certain patterns. Doesn't mean that I'm really like always the best at handling them. Okay, I suppose the question is just how subjective is exploitation? If you haven't read The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, or is it the child? What the fuck is the short story called? Hold on, Omelas. I always forget. It's the ones who walk away from Omelas. Like the name of Erlich Wins, Walk Away from Omelas. Um, that is a very interesting exercise in this exact question and kind of dealing with this question of how subjective is exploitation. So in that story, it basically like Ursula Le Guin says that there's this perfect society, and all it requires is that we put all of the pain and suffering in the society on one child. And everyone in the society knows about that. They know that there's this place where the child lives, and the child must always be subject to this intense pain and suffering so that no one else does. They're the beast of burden, basically. And that's kind of an extreme, almost like a utility monster for exploitation and suffering thought experiment um, that everyone should kind of be aware of. And it's a short story; you can read it easily. But Jesse says, if we suddenly paid living wages to the Congolese, did we just simply move the goalpost of exploitation? In a sense, yes, but that's still a horrible reason to keep people at their current level of poverty. Thinking Fast and Slow, great book. Yeah. I often joke with my kid because my husband is in recruiting. So I often joke with my kid that someday you'll be able to tell your great grandkids that your dad was like that was a slave trader at the time because he worked in human resources, you know, in like uh, shuffling around human resources. And I don't know if you guys just heard what I forget who the CEO of the bank was or what the bank was that the guy was from that said this, but he said we're using AI to replace low value human resources. Like, bro, they ain't even trying to hide it no more. Um, but yeah, so this is a thing. I think we've gotten off track. Let me see where I am in this. Exploitation. Yes, yes, yes. Let me read the comments. Um, realize Buddhism, embrace or refute samsara. Yeah, I think I embrace it mostly. What is consumerism? Is that a real question, Danny? Are you being facetious? Okay, the emergence of experience is an essential characteristic of how people the emergence of experience as an essential characteristic is not accidental. It is at least partly an economic strategy. Yeah, we need to consume experience now because we can't keep producing these commodities. That's not going to work for us. The future health of the economy depends on an effective staging of memorable events. For them, experiences must be memorable and powerful if the consumer is to be an active participant in the event in which they are immersed. What sells is not a product or service, but the experience attached to the product or service. For example, chapter 8, I focus on the coffee shop experience, which is about as far more straightforward which is about far more than the straightforward drinking of a beverage, but it's all about the transformation of a single commodity, coffee, into a comprehensive setting, coffee shop. That adds up to more than the value of its parts. In an experience society, everything is potentially better presented and received as an experience, not only of media and commercial forms of consumption, but also culture and education. So that a visit to the museum, for example, is a symbiotic process of production and consumption. Such environments are ripe for cognitive interpretation insofar as they show rather than tell, delight rather than instruct. Let me make a comment to you guys. What is the experience of being in this book club? Because I think I'm pretty shitty at selling that experience. I don't package it because I am not concerned with, and maybe I should be. I'm not concerned necessarily with your experience outside of thinking. Like the experience, I'm kind of hardcore like that. I'm like, oh, the experience, I'm a little old school. The experience should be thinking, reading. The most you get from me is like a little silly commentary and a little silly outfit, silly hair colors. Like that's what I provide as an experience, akin to an audiobook with interactivity. Yeah. Okay. So it's like you you read, it's like you're listening to someone read an audiobook and they're talking to you and they're asking you questions to challenge your understanding of this. That is funny. Yes. That is an interesting experience. I hadn't thought about that. Um I'm going to think about this a little bit more because I don't know if I am delighting rather than instructing. And I don't know if it's really worth it for me to focus on the experience. I think um, maybe I should. It's something I should consider. I do this enough. I spend enough time doing this. I should probably reconsider this. It's like talking during a movie. Yeah. Okay. I love talking during a movie. My favorite thing, one of my favorite things is to watch something with someone and pause it and have like a commentary and make like a whole evening out of it. So I remember there was one the first time I really remember like doing something like this was when Elon Musk was on Saturday Night Live. I thought I came home and my husband's like, "What do you want to do tonight?" And I'm like, "I just want to tweet about Elon Musk being on Saturday Night Live." And I think it was high. I think it's like I want to get high and tweet about this. And that was the experience for me. I was like, I want to watch the skit, make my observation and conclusion about it and tweet about it as it's going on. That's the thing I like. It's a very feminine sentiment. So to want to talk during a movie is a very feminine sentiment. Somebody stand up for me. Tell Jared he's full of shit. Pause reading the book. Let's explain this goofy ass term. It helps analyze, to be honest. Okay. Okay, so you do like it. Does it delight rather than instruct? I don't know. I don't know if I'm delighting you. I hope so. I'm trying to delight you. I could probably do a better job. My coughing probably is not very delightful. In like, okay. So there's something more fundamental going on here than just rather show rather than tell, delight rather than instruct. The word experience implies a degree of agency, yet experiences are highly produced, industrially so, in fact. Okay, hold on. Let me pause here and say something about this feminine, masculine, talking during the movie, talking during the game thing. Maybe this is why there's not a lot of women in this group because talking during the game is fine if you're talking in intermission and you're talking about the game, right? You want to see the play and you want to the game is the reason you are gathered, right? And so we're kind of doing this exact same thing. I think this is very similar to that in that the book is the reason we are gathered here. We are all gathered here today to read this book, and we're talking about the book. Now, is this a feminine thing to do? No, it's not. It's actually quite masculine to do to discuss the object rather than discuss the relationships, right? We're not here discussing Jared and my like irritation with one another. Sometimes we are. We're discussing, you and Anton beefing or Crispy saying something that you shouldn't say or whatever. Sometimes, Chai, same thing. Sometimes we are getting into like the nitty gritty of the relationships in the book club. But by and large, if we do that, it is exemplary of the text. So right there, me pulling on the interpersonal experiences of the group is meant as an exemplar of what is in the text. So it's still keeping it real about the text. It's maybe feminizing it a bit because it is everyone likes to hear themselves talk. Everyone likes to hear their own name uttered. Everyone likes to hear it like to be talked to. So in a sense, I think it is maybe a little bit feminizing, but not feminine enough for most women. I think most women, and this is there's a lot of data and evidence whether this is socially constructed or biologically doesn't matter. There's a lot of evidence that women prefer context. So women might prefer less talk about the game, less talk about the actual abstraction, and more talk about the relationship, more talk about the interpersonal dynamics. Women be talking also. But yes, okay, so even some of my examples, maybe they're not the best examples, but they are ones that I can relate to contextually. And so they're at top of mind. Like Anton's always like, oh, um, what did he say? Oh, you're using an example from your own life again, or some shit like that. Like, yes, I am, because that's what's, top of mind. There are two other lives right now that I would regularly join and rage in the comment section, but yours is the best because of the topic for one, and two, the discussion is just more challenging. Ah, Jesse, really? Oh, can you please comment on this post and link those other two live streamers? I would love to see them. Oh, this is back to that Schopenhauer shit, conserved versus expressed selfhood. Say more about that, Jared. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. In reality, women have never pitted feminine values against male ones. It is men wanting to maintain masculine prerogatives who invented this division. They want to create a feminine domain, a rule of life of eminence to lock women in it. Simone de Beauvoir. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think maybe there's an element of that men want to procure some of that feminine energy once in a while for themselves. They don't really want all of it all the time, but I don't really want all of it all the time either. Um, so I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm a pick me. Feminist alert. Chai says feminist alert. What do you disagree with, Everett? Uh, you agree with me on which part? On which part? Okay, so there is something more fundamental going on. The word experience implies a degree of agency, and yet experiences are highly produced, industrially so, in fact. The, the tension that exists here is all about the extent to which the experience is choreographed or produced, and the ability of the consumer to define it for themselves. Huh. O'Sullivan and Spangler do well to dwell on some of the psychological elements of experiential consumption, going as far as to argue that experiences serve the psychic needs of society, but they do so in such a way as to imply that these elements are above all manufactured, that the marketer effectively has the power to conduct the consumer in order that he or she can procure psychological benefits from their consumption experience. Interesting. Okay, so I think one of the things that I do poorly, and this is why I'm not very good at manufacturing experience here, is because as the marketer of this event, I am not um, arranging this with your consumption needs first. And in a sense, I'm doing you a favor because I'm not marketing to you as others are marketing to you. Others would market to you. And I'm curious, Jesse, if the other two lives market to you in this way, where they have a predefined set of questions, predefined set of discussion elements that create an experience for you that is meant mostly for you, the consumer, the reader, the live viewer. Selfishly, I do this for me. I have not read this book before, and I started doing this because I want to read it. And you guys are kind of secondary to that. Sorry to tell you this, but everybody who comes here long enough knows that. I'm reading this book for me. You are just here to play with me. Like we enjoy each other's company, but I am not trying to sell you an experience first and foremost. Like, do I want you to enjoy this? Yes. But first and foremost, I want to read this book. So if my primary objective was to sell you something, I would have to read the book first and formulate a set of questions and a set of, and some marketing materials that would sell you the book, right? That would be my primary objective. And it's not. My primary objective is to understand the material in here, and learn it with you. And so I think this is where I fail quite often. Oh, you agree with me on the feminism? Yeah, I don't know that there's a huge element here of like masculine, feminine. It's just what's come out in the discussion. I don't really see this as like a big like masculine, feminine thing about the experience society. Now, is there a kind of masculine, feminine experience of consumption? Absolutely. Is there a hard skewing of my audience in a male direction? Yes. This could be for a number of reasons, but I would say by and large, there aren't a ton of women in philosophy. I'll say that first and foremost. Um, yeah, that, and I'll leave it at that. There are probably a number of reasons which we could get into, and I don't really want to because I would much rather focus on the women that do participate rather than the ones that don't. Because I'm not going to change my whole routine here and the thing that I do just to get a certain type of viewer or just to accommodate someone else. My primary goal is not to sell, but my primary goal is to learn. And so anyone who wants to accompany me in that will come along for the ride. Would I like more women? Yes. But that's not my primary objective. It's authenticity that halts your sales pitch. Yeah, you're right. I'm totally not. I'm not prophilic enough. Like I don't use a very carefully crafted profile. Hans would say I'm not doing a good job. The other two lives are mostly talking about what it's like to be Jewish on the left these days. The conversation is interesting, but it lacks the perspective of thinking fast and slow. People say Israel and it becomes attack on an individual because of psychological bias. That's so boring to me. That's so boring to me. One note, one dimensional. Like, can we talk about a few other things? Like, not everything. I hate like the monoframing that is used all the time in some of these intellectual circles. Like, for people who consider themselves like intellectual and thinkers, they certainly don't like to think very much. They like to put one frame on it and then drill down on that and use only that frame. You will not find me doing that. In fact, if you see me doing that, please tell me. And then I'll be like, oh shit, my bad. I've gotten lazy. You don't got that shark in you, the sales shark. Are you sure about that? No, you're absolutely right. I don't. Masculinity is the thinking field. Feminine is about the emotional. I mean, I feel like this is not entirely true. Men have emotions as well. And I've gotten into this argument. If you've ever seen the episode of Syllogism, I think it was season 2, episode 6, where Brett and I went toe to toe on this whole emotional intelligence thing, talking about masculine, feminine, emotional intelligence. It was a fun podcast, and my friend Colleen came on, and I could tell she was pissing Brett off. So that was a lot of fun. If you ever want to watch that one, not Charles Murray. What are we talking about Charles Murray for? Okay, let's continue. So, the psychic needs of a society, um, okay, they do so in a way that implies that these elements are above all manufactured. Yeah, okay. The marketer effectively has the power to conduct the consumer in order that he or she can procure psychological benefits from their consumption experience. So, the marketer is trying to extract certain things from the consumer. And this is what we're talking about like coercion and how the experience society becomes so lopsided with the power in the marketer's hands, the power in the capitalist's hands. Because if if my goal is to sell to you guys, if that's really my number one goal, which maybe I should do the experiment of trying to make that my number one goal, then everything I do is framed around around getting you to buy from me. Okay. So, Catherine, you believe in the Myers Briggs test, the thinking feeling dichotomy is the only one that is statistically significant, I'm guessing you're saying. Um, if my goal were to extract that $6 a month from you, Catherine, what would I say? I would say, girl, I totally agree with you. 1,000%. The thinking feeling dynamic is so important. I would agree with you. I would glaze you. I would challenge you, Catherine, to think a little bit differently about that. I would say, what about the intuitive sensory dynamic? Do you think there's any validity in that? I would probably try to figure out what is Catherine's main motivating factor. I would try to understand like her psychological profile. What is she here to what are you here for, Catherine? How did you find this? And I would do everything I could to get you to upgrade to that $6 a month on Substack. It is not that is not my primary goal. Catherine, I would love to have you in the Discord. I would love to have you tomorrow at the lecture on the last book that we read, which is what the fuck is it? Here it is. I Am the Master, which I'll be giving tomorrow at 12:45 noon or 12:45 in the Discord. But that's not my goal. My goal is to explain what we're reading here. And what I would say, Catherine, about the Myers-Briggs in this sense is that Myers-Briggs, and this goes to I, the Master as well. What was said about Myers-Briggs and a lot of these psychometric tests, including IQ tests, is that they were effectively created to try and group people into easy to define consumer psychographics, like demographics, but psychographics. So if I know, Catherine, are you thinking or feeling? What's your Myers Briggs profile? I would love to know. And so that if I know your Myers Briggs profile, I know what you identify with, and I know how to sell you something a little bit better. And so that's what's being said here about this book. So my goal is not necessarily to sell you something. I would like you to buy it, but it's my primary goal is to get you to understand what we're talking about in this book. So I don't actually think that the thinking and feeling dichotomy, I don't think that there's actually like a significant difference between thinking and feeling. Thinking is just a type of feeling, and feeling is just a type of thinking. They're electrical impulses, really. What is a thought? What is a feel? You cannot define these things, really. They're abstract processes that occur in the brain. Same thing with, I mean, all of the Myers-Briggs things, they're actually quite fluid. You might have a strong identification with some of these things, but like, I mean, how many of you, raise your hand in the chat if you have ever taken a Myers-Briggs and gotten different results? I've taken it many times in my life and gotten many different results. I would say the only thing that has ever rang absolutely true for me, and every time I've ever done Myers Briggs, has been the intuitive, the N over the S part. But I've been INTJ, I've been ENFP, I've been all of the Myers Briggs and everywhere in between. So I think it really depends on where you're at in your life, and this is part of the problem with tests like Myers-Briggs is it treats humans like static entities, which we are not. And I think a lot of people who use them don't recognize why these things are used. It's only good for identifying extroverts. See, but Jared, you're doing the same thing she's doing. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's only good for identifying introversion and extroversion. Catherine, did you leave, by the way? Where do you go, girl? No such thing as an ambivert, just moody extroverts. Well, I take a great offense to that because I am an ambivert. Whenever I take it, I flip flop between E and I quite a bit. Hi, Mike. Welcome. Thanks for the heart, Crispy. Okay. Masculine, feminine, more a matter of socialization and environment or innate evolutionary. Yeah. I'll pass on that bait, Jesse, but I think it's a combination. Myers-Briggs is a marketing tool. I never knew. Aren't results still submissible in court? Why wouldn't they be? I mean, everything's submissible in court. What are your thoughts on gynarchy and its future? Damn, the hard-hitting questions, Harry. I think men are not exactly needed, but wanted by some. Oh, you're still here. I just find the gender to thinking, feeling correlation interesting based on my own observations. Yeah, Catherine. That part I actually agree with you. That there is a gender correlation. The thing that Jesse's saying on Substack is that he's kind of, and it's not really contested. I think people don't contest the fact that women express emotions more. That's not contested. What's contested is, do women feel emotions more? That's contested, and that's something we talk about in that podcast episode I was mentioning. It's available on YouTube. The other thing that is contested is where this stems from. Is it innate? Is it acquired? Is it genetic? Is it environmental? So these are the things that are contested about those. Now, it's also quite dynamic. I might Now men are a little bit more steady. Men operate on a 24-hour cycle, whereas women in reproductive years operate on a lunar cycle. So our women's emotions um, fluctuate far more than men's because of our endocrine function and that kind of thing. Men are pretty steady. Testosterone peaks in the morning and then wanes, right? That like their hormones and the activating hormones, things that drive a lot of emotions, pretty solid every single day throughout the vast majority of their lives. Like their andropause is a thing, but men still have quite a bit of testosterone throughout most of their life. That's the wrong correlation at all. Feeling empty at BI has nothing to do with emotions. I don't know if that's true, Chai. Men have existential dread. Sure, I think they do. I'm a male and I like to think of myself as more an enabler for my woman, so I hope I'm needed. Harry, that's funny. Male babies express emotion more than little girls. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence that there's socialization in males and females that leads to different emotional expression, for sure. Okay, let's continue. So these are moments that, on one hand, appear to free us up, but on the other, tie us to the ideologies. Oh, no, sorry. What I want to explore is something different. The idea that a new evolving world of consumption is less about the production of experience and more about how such experience encourages us to feel that we have more control, and that what we are controlling here is physical, mental, or emotional moments. These moments are that, on the one hand, appear to free us up, tie us to ideologies of consumer capitalism in ways that are perhaps more binding than they ever were in the past. This it is via the need these This means that consumer capitalism has effectively been rebooted. The consumer capitalism we live by is a consumer capitalism in which the self is center stage, but in which any kind of centering of the self is a little more than a facade designed to reaffirm their lived commitment to a social and economic system that equates with choice with freedom. Yeah, this is good stuff, because this is exactly what I'm getting at. That there, because of like the advances in our understanding of ourselves psychologically, we are bound to a lot of these algorithms. In a sense, the algorithms are constructed, as we talked about, the behavioral economics are constructed, like, thanks to the F scanner, for us to be manipulated. It's just what it is. And again, I don't like these totalizing ideologies, but it's kind of true. You can say that people have a really hard time escaping these things, especially people who are not critical thinkers. If you can't recognize what's going on, how are you ever going to fix it? So it's the same thing with the glasses. If I can't properly assess that my vision is bad, how am I ever going to go get glasses or know which glasses to get? Without that assessment, without that understanding, there's little we can do to fix it. So I think the very first step is a critical awareness and understanding of the water that we are swimming in. Charles Murray comment earlier was that he explains women are more average, men are prone to extremes. This is by and large due to the activating tendencies of testosterone. Now it depends what you're talking about. Extremes in terms of like danger, risk aversion, yes. But when you look at like maternal behavior, there are some extremes that women are prone to, not even maternal behavior, but the behavior of mothers and the behavior of women dependent upon various stages of hormonal fluctuation. This can change. So, like I said before, men have this 24-hour cycle where you can kind of set your watch by how they will behave and their kind of risk taking patterns and stuff like that and their extremes. Whereas women, they get extreme in certain ways during different parts of their cycle because of the activating effects of different hormones. Okay. So, private experience, public self. It's important to note that I am not arguing that the new mode of consumption automatically make consumers active participants in their consumption experiences, but rather it propagates the sense. Okay, so he's saying what's important to think about in the experience society is that the experience that is sold to you is meant to make you think you are in charge, to make you think you have total control. So you guys at any time can flip away from here, right? You can scroll up and go to the next slide. You can exit this app at any time you want, right? Just like with cigarettes, you can stop anytime you want. Now, my content is not particularly like dopamine activating. I think it's pretty even. I'm not doing things that are really like attention grabbing. And so maybe my content isn't as addicting as other people's content. Um, but the goal is for you not to realize you're addicted. The goal is to just keep you scrolling on the phone. And you guys all know this. Everybody knows this. But the goal is also to make you feel like you have agency, to make you feel like you can scroll away at any time. So this age of experience revitalizes the analogical potential of consumer capitalism through the illusory plane of self-expression that experience provides. Thus, the vision of an active form of consumption that authors such as Pine and Gilmore promote could be said to be unconvincing in the sense that the production of situations in which consumers do appear to be more proactive may do nothing more than intensify their passivity. Yeah, so if you tell yourself, oh, I can quit anytime I want, you're not going to quit because you're like, whatever, it's just another scroll. It's just another 5 minutes on here. What does it matter? As noted above, the notion of an experience society isn't entirely unique. German sociologist Gerhard Schultz identified the existence of such an entity back in 1995 with a book of the same name. For Schultz, the experience society is defined by an underlying shift from consumption being a means to resolve external issues, for example, by buying a caravan as a mean of leisure transport, to it being about satisfying the ideas he or she has about himself. So, buying a caravan to fulfill a notion of self as traveled and fully leisured. So previously, if you're buying an RV, you're buying the RV to go, yeah, I'm going to go on these vacations. This is an object of utility for me. Now, buying an RV is a whole persona. If you buy an Airstream, you are an Airstream type person. You know what I mean? If you are a Marriott member, that is your personality. That kind of shit. Okay. This transition brings with it a certain concentrated quality. Through their changing relationship with consumption, consumers are no longer playing the long game. They're living for the moment and making the most of that moment. In effect, life becomes an experiential project. It's no longer, from this perspective, about getting on and getting through life, but about designing it for their own best interests. Experiences are made and not received. What's interesting about Schultz's analysis is the implication that there is a degree of instrumentalization going on here. Hmm. The consumer has an internal goal. They actively use experience as a means of achieving a subjective end. The subject digests situations in order to convert them into intensely singular experiences. The subject digests situations to convert them into singular experiences. Okay, so um, my experience with the whale sharks, right? Now, was my experience more singular than others? I don't know. But I want to believe that my experience was special. My experience was singular. The irony is that engaging in such experiences, the individual helps to maintain a society in which experience homogenizes. So, by me trying to say that my experience with the whale sharks was different, or the girls who are like ratting out the dudes who are doing this exploitative practice of the whale sharks, trying to be like, no, this is unethical, their them engaging with this is just drawing more attention to the whale sharks, right? And so it's homogenizing the experience. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 or 15 years, like whale sharks are like going extinct because of stupid shit like this. I don't know. It may be because of climate change as well. I mean, their whole migration patterns are changing, and actually, I think they're endangered. I don't actually know. I'm just saying shit. But the argument here is that trying to pretend like my experience is special and not something that has been actively marketed to me is what further enhances the marketing because everybody wants that experience. And so it's working, right? The me feeling special, like I got a very special experience is like helping to perpetuate the marketing. It's doing the marketing it's doing the marketing for the marketers. So the consumer feels liberated, in control, but that sense of control serves a bigger purpose, obviously, to give more control over to the hegemony. Various authors have commented on how the society in which we live has become increasingly atomized and alienating. And that in this context, the world with consumption steps in to provide us with a source of meaning, a sense of exaltation, perhaps. For thrift, for example, the process of commodification is about constructing and marketing the products which meet these needs the most. From this point of view, experiences and events serve the purpose of making attendees believe that they are doing something amazing, so they return in future years. That something is actually a hyper real, yet that something is actually a hyper real, fake, watered down version of the original experience because the mega event is controlled by the entertainment industries, which are key components of the culture industry. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about like the manta ray experience. If you remember me talking about that yesterday, some of you were here for that. I was describing how on the Big Island, they have, I mean, there's a lot of manta rays there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't move this to places like Thailand and Indonesia, where there are a ton of pelagic fish, where you can shine this blue light and have a bunch of plankton come up. And then the manta rays have this like huge source of food. What's funny is we went on this manta ray experience. My friend wanted to do it for her birthday. God bless her. But we only saw one and a half manta ray. And we all sat out there that, I don't know, 70, 80 fucking yokels out on they basically create these lights and they strap them to a board. And then you have to hold on to the board in your stupid fucking wetsuit and put your snorkel in the water. And you have to lie flat. So they give you a noodle that you have to put your fucking feet up on. It was so annoying and probably, I mean, I don't want to dog it too much because, like, actually, I enjoyed the experience of analyzing the whole thing. I enjoyed watching the guys panic about trying to get the manta ray as we're out there swimming in the middle of the ocean at night waiting for them. I enjoyed the experience of being able to analyze this. So I don't want to act like it was completely useless and awful, but I also don't want to promote it. I don't think people should really do this. Okay, cool. A manta ray swam this close to my face. Fucking okay. But this is the thing that I'm talking about here. I'm trying to think where I was going with this. How did you see 1.5 manta rays? It was far away. We had one that came up, and they have names for them because all these manta rays now live in this area, and so they've all named them based on their markings. But we had one that came up, and then one that came over there. And it was just interesting because you can tell that the guides who were hired to do this job, they have to make a big deal about it when one comes by. So they're like hooting and hollering and screaming, "Yay, oh my gosh, I'm Mary," getting everybody excited. And then we get up back on the boat. The captain is like, "Now I know some of you may be disappointed that we only saw one manta ray, but that's better than none." And they tried telling us, "Oh, some people didn't see any at all." And of course, they tell you if you don't see any, you can come out tomorrow and they'll, provide you a new experience with it. Um, but this is all a marketing tactic. And so this is going to be homogenized for more people to do in Thailand or wherever else, because I'm pretty sure a private equity company bought out this little small boat captain on the island who was doing this and has since expanded this to multiple boats and a whole big operation, which I'm sure they will expand to other areas where there are migratory manta rays. Do you not enjoy any experience for the experience of it? No, I do. Chai, I do. I mean, and this is what I'm saying. Even I fall victim to these things. Like I said, I saw Masquerade in New York City in the fall, and it was fucking fantastic. I loved it. I love Phantom of the Opera. I'm a sucker for that shit. So I very much enjoyed the experience. Very much enjoyed going to Okinawa and having the whole beach to myself. Like, very much enjoyed these things. I do enjoy these experiences. Sometimes I get a little like heady about them. Sometimes I get a little analytical about them. I'm always thinking, I'm always critical, but I do enjoy the experiences, but it's hard for me not to see it in this light. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. You got to read Sapolsky's chapter on testosterone and estrogen from Behave. Oh, dude, I read that a long time ago. I don't know if you've heard me say this, Jesse, but I did my PhD on estrogen in the brain. And so I've known about Sapolsky since I was a wee baby scientist. I mean, I knew about him from the days of him studying testosterone. I actually thought about doing a postdoc with him. But he didn't really work on the stuff I wanted to work on, but I thought about it. I get it. Crispy, how do you remember that I worked on simulation proteins? That's crazy that if that's what you're referring to. Yes, I get it. The other shows feel like you're examining the puppet, but your topic examined the hand beneath the puppet. Oh, interesting. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Jesse. I appreciate that. When I read a book, I'm trying to be very critical of it. I'm not just reading the book to you. I'm also giving you my real-time interpretation of it. Maybe wrong, maybe completely off the wall, my experience of this book. But that's why I like reading this to you guys, because a lot of times you guys have your own experience of these books. And so I love doing this. I don't really care. I mean, I always wanted to be a professor, right? And I left academia 10 years ago for a number of reasons. But the one thing about academia that bothered me is that semester after semester, year after year, you have to teach the same shit. So let's say I were teaching Bio 101, even something advanced like a signal transduction class or a virology class for graduate students. You're often teaching the same shit. Like I had a professor who I worked for a while, who taught molecular biology 1 and 2, I think. And he did this lecture on Huntington's disorder, or Huntington's disease. And he was trying to teach us about, I think, the codons. I can't remember exactly, but I could tell that when he wrote the sequence for the Huntington mutation on the board, he had done this 1,000 times before. And he asked us questions that he had prepared in advance. And I could tell that he was posing these questions to the class to see who was the brightest, who was going to be his favorite student. Of course, there were other classes that I didn't do so well in. Like there was a bacterial pathogenesis I crushed. There was a bacterial biochemistry class that was really fucking difficult that I did not do well in and did not vibe with the professor. But I didn't want to have to do this over and over again and have a new crop of students, especially like young students who are here only because they have to get the degree. The idea of doing academia like that, where it's basically a vocational school, did not appeal to me. Instead, I really, really enjoy this experience, which I wouldn't even consider this teaching. I wouldn't even consider what I do here teaching. What I'm doing is learning with you. We are constantly learning things together. And while we're learning something, it's an active process. It's like learning a language in the place where you're living. So, like, I was just in Japan, and I learned a bit of Japanese before I went. I've been 2 times, and I learned a bit of Japanese before I went, but there's nothing like that immersive experience of learning when you get there and someone teaches you something, or you have to think off the cuff, like, "How do I say this right now?" Like, I had to remember how to say, mom and daughter and cousin, in the moment, because I was trying to explain to this sushi restaurant owner what was going on with my family. Like, who were we? How were we operating? And so I feel like a lot of times what I do here is a very like immersive learning thing where I'm reading to you guys, I'm learning this thing, and we're also applying concepts from before that you may or may not have been here before. And so you're getting immersed in like a whole philosophical experience. So I really like that. And I don't think I would ever want to go back to the kind of teaching that academia actively puts forth. Like, it's like, to me, it's a commoditized version of this. And I fucking hate that. So, Jesse, I appreciate what you said about this live that I do, the experience of this live. Yes. And you teach me German pronunciations. Thank you, Jared. I do appreciate you for that. Sorry, let me scroll back. Are you in computational biology or structural? Neither. I was in molecular biology. Your class would be different every time, even if it's the same subject. That is so true, Chai. You're probably right about that. And I get a chance to practice my philosophy here, and you do such a great job, Jeff. Everything is ghetto today. What? What are you guys talking about? Mr. Miyagi was Japanese. I know, dude. I was in Okinawa, where Mr. Miyagi's from. I know. Not sure what that has to do with anything, but thank you for that comment. Okay. So let's continue reading here. What is effectively being described is a process in which, over time, a new individualism has emerged. Such individualism is the product of a capitalism that has sought to expand its influence through a focus on identity needs and the search for meaning that this implies. Authors such as Curtis have recently described a process whereby the market of neoliberalism has become a kind of undisputed common sense or way of being, a form of idiotism. For Curtis, idiotism is all about the privatization of life. That's the next book we're reading, by the way. Where's the damn book that I had here? Oh, yeah. Okay, so the book we're currently reading is this one, The Experience Society, by Stephen Miles. There is a sequel which we'll finish, which we'll read at the end of the month. This book is short; it's only 200 pages, and then this one is short. And this talks about exactly what he just mentioned here, how individualism and identity are drivers of the experience. So, like the whole idea of like my lived experience versus your lived experience, and how that creates a big problem for society. So we'll read about this. And then the next month, we'll read about this idiotism, which is a consequence, like how we have this neoliberal market, which like generates a bunch of stupid fucking hot takes, not even like lukewarm takes, because life is privatized. And it's funny because at the same time, the private and the public sector are fusing. So there is like a privatization of life, but there's a paradoxical publicization of life, which we'll talk about at the end of the year when we do Hannah Arendt's Life of the Mind. Um, anyways, that's don't ask me how I arranged this shit so well. It's really just an intuitive thing. Um, yeah, Curtis's Simulate from Avatar is a book and not a man at all. I don't know what you talking about at all. Okay, so for Curtis, idiotism is about privatization, a process that results in human beings being atomized as relentlessly self-interested individuals. Funny, Mike. This amounts to a capturing of the soul. This isn't, it's an art, Mike. That's all I can say. It's an art. Um, this amounts to a capturing of the soul in which everything and anything of a creative or imaginative bent is set to work in the best interests of generating economic value. The world that Berardi describes is a world in which the personalization of culture, a new version of publicness, which has emerged in a mind share, is an end goal. Ooh. Also when I was in Japan, the big thing I kept seeing was, "Oh, you can get your Onitsuka Tigers embroidered or whatever." And I love me some Onitsuka Tigers. I'm not even gonna lie. I got 2 pairs. But you had to go to the Tokyo flagship store and wait in line for 2 hours to get them embroidered with your initials or whatever. I was like, "Man, fuck that. I don't care that much. I just like them. They're comfortable shoes, they're cute, and they're like a souvenir from Japan." But the idea that someone would stand in line for 2 hours to get these shoes personalized is fucking bizarre to me. The culture in which we live, but it's really not much that sorry, it's not that much of a stretch from like going to Japan, like to buy these things. It's not that much more of a stretch, like waiting in line to get them embroidered. And I think this is just indicative of like the gradation of the personalization of culture. Like the Onitsuka Tigers you can't really get in the US. Um, and so that's why we get them in Japan, because if you like those shoes, you get them in Japan. You could I think you could probably order them. They're just a lot more expensive. But this is all on the spectrum of personalization and privatization. So the culture in which we live from this point of view, as perhaps exemplified by the world of celebrity culture and social media, is about negating privacy, yet valorizing it at one and the same time. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about Hannah Arendt and this kind of melding of like private and public. Like privacy is kind of a privilege now, it's a luxury. How we see ourselves, thus, becomes a product of process of performance and displays through which the soul is mined. This is another thing relating to Profilicity, where if you have the luxury of creating a profile, you then get to keep certain aspects of yourself private, and you can only put forth a certain profile to people. So this is part of it as well. Which this was their book from March, and I did a podcast with the author on my YouTube channel. You can go and watch that as well. They also make wrestling shoes. Used to wear them all the time. That's funny. Okay, theoretical roots. So I want to take a couple steps back to consider two of the most important contributions to discussions around the ideological context in which consumption operates. I want to consider what these two approaches might tell us about the question of satisfaction in the context of Schultz. Key here is the work of the Frankfurt School, especially Adorno and Horkheimer and Debord, Guy Debord and Spectacle of Society. Horkheimer and Adorno are commonly seen to represent the consumer as a passive entity. Adorno are the mirror to market forces that obliges them to behave in particular ways. So, what Adorno and Horkheimer are saying is like the market does its shit, and the consumer is just over here going, oh wow, oh cool, right? Just kind of passively consuming. Yes, usual suspects. Exactly. We can't read a book without mention of Frankfurt School. Like it's just the vibe we're on lately. Just stick around, it'll change. There was a time when we couldn't read a book without talking about Karl Popper. It will change. Okay. We'll probably go through an Adam Smith phase at some point here. Adorno, what's perhaps at the core of their position is the recognition that capitalism came to dominate not simply through the economic, but via the cultural realm, so that docile forms of consumerism reinforce the status quo and reinforce the powerlessness of the masses. Let me repeat that. The recognition that capitalism came to dominate not simply through economic, but cultural realms, so that docile forms of consumerism reinforce the status quo. So it's not just about economics. Capitalism needed to infiltrate culture fully, entirely. in order for us to be captivated by it. What are you yelling at him for? It's not his fault. It's not I chose the book. What is perhaps oh, I'm sorry, I read that. And herein lies the rub. The more apparent benefits of consumerism appeal to the consumer, the more ideological power of consumer capitalism, the more the ideological power of consumer capitalism is free to assert its authority. Let me read that shit one more time. The more apparent benefits of consumerism appeal to the consumer, the more the apparent benefits of consumerism appeal to the consumer, the more ideological power of consumer capitalism. So the more we are like, hell yeah, I like this. I love the Onitsuka Tigers. They're super comfortable. The more the consumerist culture infiltrates. It's like, oh, why don't you guys have Onitsuka Tigers? I can't believe you guys don't have them. What do you guys? What do you mean? I actually should make a video about that. There is one person I follow. What's her name? Aritzia. She calls herself a mattress actress. She's one of my favorites. I think she's going out with Young Gravy. But I really like her a lot. And I love the parodies that she does. Sometimes she does like the pick me parody or the girl that doesn't wear makeup or the friend who's not really your friend. I would like to do a parody of of the influencer as well. It's like it's okay. So Michaela Noguera, raise your hand if you know Michaela Noguera. What's gross, by the way? She's gross. Get out of here. So raise your hand if you know Michaela Noguera. Michaela Noguera has been doing all kinds of weird fuck shit. As long as she's been around, she does weird fuck shit. Catherine, you know who she is. And I have been calling this bitch out ever since I got on this app. And I watch her shit. Would I say I'm a fan? No, I'm not. I'm a fan, I guess, because if you watch somebody shit, you're a fan. I am not a stan. But I watch her shit from an analytical perspective. Now, I am a fan of Nara Smith. I will say that. I'm a fan. I will call myself a fan of Nara Smith. What did she do? So lately, the thing she's done, she's been going through a divorce. And in her divorce, she has acquired a new closet because she bought this mega house and she's become a big influencer. And she had her closet, which she rearranged last year. She had it professionally organized. And now she has acquired her ex-husband's closet, which she has subsequently filled up with junk. Way too many fucking pairs of jeans, way too many fucking clothes. And she is a perfect example of the just mass consumption phenomena. Why do you need to go buy 15 Chanel purses? You don't. But the algorithm rewards it. So I don't know how much money she makes off each video, but if the bitch is getting 1 million likes on a video, she is making back everything she just spent on those purses. If she spends $150,000 on 15 Chanel purses, and she makes $50,000, then I mean, she only spent 50. She makes more than that. She's also getting all these brand deals. So it's like this just kind of perpetuates the cycle. But the point is that I would love to do a parody. I'd love to do parodies, and I don't do enough of this. I don't have enough time to like sit and think about like a parody routine. I would like to do that though. That may be like on my future rabbit hole workshop, which by the way, if you're interested in doing the rabbit hole workshop with me today, we are halfway through the year, friends. And so I'm going to be going through my, what I did in January and all of the rabbit hole workshops today at 4:00. I'm also going through, there's a guy that I follow. His name is Cam, goes by Struthless on YouTube, but he has a really nice half year reset that I'm going to do today. And I'm going to incorporate some of this when I do the workshop later. The worksheet is available for free on my Substack on the last post that I made on the Experience Society. But I would like to do some kind of parody of that because I think there's not enough parody. There's not enough shit actually calling this out. And I think people don't realize that this like lack of critical consumption is really damaging for us. I think they just shrug and put their hands up and they're like, oh, what am I supposed to do? We all got to do what we got to do. But I think when you critically consume something, it changes your brain chemistry a little bit. I think something happens where you think about this and maybe something changes. I know it's not the entire solution, but it is a start. Like I said, if you know you need glasses, that's the beginning of fixing your vision. That's what trends now, and they all jump on the same bat. Yes. And I don't think anybody's very critical of it. Like I said yesterday, Madison Humphrey is like one of the only people who's kind of critical of influencer culture and does parodies of it. Genuine question. What do you enjoy more, biology or philosophy? Um, Now philosophy, definitely. But I do like philosophy of science. Okay. Which part? RKR? All right, let's keep reading. So, the more the benefits of consumerism, the more power of capitalism. So, for Adorno and Horkheimer, the key transition in the evolution of the authority of capitalism lies in its ability to dissipate any sense of a common identity in consumers. Interesting. So, we can all be our own unique flavor of the same person, basically. This isn't necessarily my logic. Are there things that I agree with? Sure. But one thing that I do here is I read a number of things and I'm critical of them, of the things that I read. Sometimes I'm more critical than other times. But I wouldn't call this my logic. This is Stephen Miles' logic. Now, my logic is an amalgamation of a lot of the things I read, and it's contextual. I don't apply the same frameworks to everything. So when I'm explaining something to you, it's not my opinion necessarily. It is my experience of someone else's opinion. So what now? Do I agree with what he's saying? Yes, but this is a frame. So if we look at things through Adorno and Horkheimer's framing, then we can see their logic. So it doesn't have to be an all encompassing logic. It doesn't mean that it's absolutely objectively true all of the time. But under this context, it makes sense. And I do believe now, one thing that I do believe is that like I said, I mentioned Daniel Kahneman. They didn't mention Daniel Kahneman at all in this book. That's my edition. That's the edition of my opinion. That through the use of behavioral economics, and this is also synthesizing things that Shoshana Zuboff has said in Surveillance Capitalism, and also Cory Doctorow in Choke Point Capitalism, that with the use of behavioral economics, starting with B.F. Skinner, we have been ushered into this era of impingement on our cognitive liberty, where many of us don't really have the mental faculties to withstand the coercion of the psychographic marketing, meaning they kind of make us do this shit. It's really hard to escape it. It's not impossible, and it's not the same level of difficulty for everyone. Some people can see past the shit better than others, but I do think that this framing is very apt to describe a lot of what happens in today's society. The fundamental shifts are critically changing the patterns. How so? Criticality is personal. You use your framework to be so critical. Think to be so critical. Thinking is not that critical. Sorry, I'm not sure what that means, Chai. Okay. So consumption and all the freedoms it allegedly implies is thus depoliticizing, while the superficial benefits of consumption come at a significant cost, that of the loss of mental freedom. This is also Isaiah Berlin, Positive Negative Freedom, and then Nita Farhani, and I forget who else. Anton, who else did we say? Who coined it? Was that one artist chick at Berkeley or UC? Where was it? Where the fuck was she? UCLA. I followed her on Instagram. Weirdly, she doesn't do research anymore. She's an artist, but she coined this term, cognitive liberty, which Nita Farhani, who is a neuroscientist, is now putting forth. That there is this idea of cognitive liberty, which we should all be fighting for. It's like a new idea of human rights. Now, say what you want about human rights. We could all read Julius I'm not going to go there. But if you believe in human rights, if you believe that there's a Bill of Human Rights that should be uh, set in place for us, then one of those new human rights that we will be looking for in the future is the right to cognitive liberty, which would basically say we have the right not to be manipulated. We have the right not to be psychographically um, led on a string. Okay. Psychographic, is that the word I'm looking for? Psychologically, by our own heuristics and predilections. Like these companies should not be able to use our own biology against us in a way that forces us to buy what they have. So it's not very critical. It's personal thinking. I mean, you could say that about any kind of thinking, that any kind of thinking is personal thinking. Critical just means you're analyzing it. The framework under which you're analyzing it can be myriad. You can have a number of frameworks under which you analyze something. That is critical thinking. Critical thinking is personal, but critical thinking is about thinking, metacognition, basically. Detached thinking is not personal. Yes, it is. No matter what, even if you can kind of detach your thoughts from your own personal experience, it's still filtered through your own personal experience. There's no such thing as fully detached experience. You can try to push your own thoughts away from yourself, but they're still on a tether connected to you. Cognitive liberty is the idea that every person has the right to control their own mind, thoughts. Yes, Lucky, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. What I said is basically the same thing, but like in the negation of it. Like, we have the right not to be manipulated. Negative rights, positive rights, culturally as hospitality, not the plagiarizer. Who's a plagiarizer? We are programmed, and the principle of bread and circuses is shoved at us. Hey, Red by Morning. You're always swimming in a sea of propaganda. True dat. True dat. Ad men just like madmen. Yes, you guys are getting it. You guys, it's just based on your comments. It sounds like you guys are getting, you're smelling what I'm stepping in. The Smith Fund Modernization Act made it legal to propagate. Oh, what? See, this is why I love y'all, because y'all teach me stuff. I need to look this up. Smith Munt. I don't know nothing about that. Thank you, Red by Morning. I think manipulation and technically seduction is just part of the human communication fabric. Oh, absolutely, Mike. Absolutely. That's why this is so messy. That's why this is such an interesting thing to look at, because what is the, and my daughter and I talk about this all the time about like manipulation and what is manipulation exactly? Like, what does it mean to manipulate or to be manipulated? What if you want to be? What if people don't want to think? What if they just want their Onitska tigers fed to them like they're in the movie Wall-E on a fucking floating, well, they wouldn't need shoes because they're so fat and they don't walk. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like they just want their fucking Slurpee delivered to them on a what the fuck, conveyor belt. Um, what about that? So it's manipulation and seduction, these kinds of things, they're just exploiting our own biology. And this is the problem, is like it kind of erodes our ability to choose. It like I'm trying to think of several movies where people have just basically kind of like de-evolved. The only one I can think of right now is like the Mario movie from like the 90s. The one with John Leguizamo, where who played Koopa? What the fuck is his name? Dennis Hopper? Yeah, Dennis Hopper played Koopa, and he would make the fucking Goombas, like, he de-evolve them. And that's what I feel like a lot of these, like, technological apparatuses and tactics are doing to us. They are smooth braining us. Sorry, I'm missing a lot of comments. In the context of AI, which can influence attention, choices, and opinions. You didn't know about Smith Munt? No, I didn't. I'm going to send you a military intel guide to follow. Yes, please do. Absolutely love it. Hey, Reblexa. That movie is so good, right? Bob Hoskins as Mario. Yes. Hoskins or is it Hopkins? Is it Hoskins? I can't remember. Anyways, let's keep reading. Um, okay. So the term culture industry reflects the loss of mental freedom. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Superficial benefits of consumption come at a significant cost, that of the loss of mental freedom. The term culture industry reflects Adorno and Horkheimer's concern that mass culture does not arise spontaneously from the masses, but is foisted upon them in a calculated fashion to the extent that the customer is not king, as the culture industry would have us believe, not its subject, but its object. By the way, guys, yesterday I told you I was going to post the picture from Japan at the Okinawa aquarium of the customer being king, or like why the customer should not be king. I posted it in the Discord. You should head over to the Discord, by the way, and make sure you mark if you're going to be present on Sunday for the lecture I'm giving on the Eye of the Master, because I've been working really hard on it. Okay. And I'm going to summarize this whole book for you in like 45 minutes, and then we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to have some interesting questions and ways to apply the shit. So be sure to join. And if you are not part of the Discord, you can join for just $6. You can get access to the Discord and to my lectures, to all of my readings for just $6 a month. Can you believe it? I know. I'm practically giving it away. All this knowledge I have here for $6 a month. Shit. Okay. So the customer is not king, but it's not its subject, but its object. The stranglehold that consumption has over us is built upon the thirst for satisfaction that it inspires, and the fact that such satisfaction is little more than an impossible dream. Hi, fake voice. Chai. Oh, I just have a lip stain on him. Thank you, though. So the culture industry perpetually cheats its consumers of what it perpetually promises. The promissory note, with its plots and staging, it draws on pleasure, endlessly prolonged. The promise, which is actually the spectacle, consists of wait, let me hear that again. The promissory note, with its plots and staging, it draws on pleasure, is endlessly prolonged. The promise, which is actually all the spectacle consists of, is illusory. All it actually confirms is that the real point will never be reached, that the diner must be satisfied with the menu. Okay, this is what I was talking about yesterday, Anton, when I sent you that clip of Anthony Bourdain. So Anthony Bourdain got what Adorno and Horkheimer were talking about. Do I think he read Adorno and Horkheimer? No, but I think he got it. Like, I think some people, like the Kardashians, for example, just get culture theory. Um, Now, MJ Corey would have you believe that they are media geniuses and maybe they have some kind of philosopher on staff. At this point, they should. I'm sure. I mean, she's basically doing that work for them. But anyways, they have like their playbook is like all culture theory. All of this culture theory is what the Kardashians have used to build an empire. But what I was saying, and I will post this video in the Discord if you guys are interested. Let me write this down for Dane so that you can see what I'm talking about. But Anthony Bourdain had this kind of voiceover when he's talking about traveling, and he's like, yeah, you think that by traveling, you're going to just experience something magical and you're going to have some kind of fucking enlightenment. But the real enlightenment is that there is no enlightenment. And it's exactly what Adorno and Horkheimer are saying here, that all of this consumerism through experience or commodities is all just basically an endless conveyor belt. There is no like final destination. There is no final understanding, except the understanding that there is no final understanding. That you're not gonna like suddenly have some experience where you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the thing I've been seeking to understand. Um, it's all just kind of an illusion. I have fun, Jared. He kept it real. Yes, he did. He totally did. Very sad. Actually, it was 9 years ago, like last week or 2 weeks ago that he sad, very sad. Consumption is effectively standardized, and as such, it reflects the economic rationality of production more broadly. Let me read that again. Consumption is standardized, and as such, it reflects the economic rationality of production more broadly. Yeah, I was talking about this maybe a few weeks ago when I went to the new Universal Park, Epic Universe. It's the consumption of the experience of Universal is very standardized, and it's meant to do like a high throughput of many, many, many people, billions of people served. Um, and so, therefore, it has to be mass produced and standardized. This is the rationality of consumption and production. Thank you, Mike. Consumption is formulaic. It self consciously appeals to the common denominator so that its products are designed not to satisfy, but rather to prevent audiences from becoming bored. Audiences are indeed flattered by the fact that they enjoy consumption of a particular form of popular music, radio, film, or television. Yeah, so it's like even me saying Pitbull is annoying or whatever. That is a way of like me flattering myself for my good taste. I'm like, oh, I don't like Pitbull. I only like obscure music or whatever. This is very much flattering to me in my own opinion of myself. Just as enjoying the people who enjoy Pitbull have an opinion of themselves that they like to have a good time and that they are fun people and they enjoy things with their friends and they fit into a certain society. Go to see Pitbull on a Sunday. That's hilarious. Yeah, Chai, tell me why you like Pitbull. Like, what does your enjoyment of Pitbull say about you as a person, Chai? I'm just curious. Like zero judgment. I'm just curious because we all have a certain feeling or thought about ourselves based on the things that we like. Audiences are flattered. A repetition is both reassuring and comforting. In this respect, consumption constitutes a form of propaganda capable of proficiently sustaining the status quo while diverting the masses from their common goal. It's just fun. You should go to the concert. It's just good vibes. See? Yeah. So this is the image that Pitbull wants to create. My friend works with Kesha, and we were talking about this yesterday because my niece loves Kesha and loves Pitbull. And we were talking about what kind of vibe is the Kesha and Pitbull concert. Like, and I guess T-Pain did a concert with Pitbull, but there's a whole vibe. There's a whole marketing around these type of people, which is going to be different than like the concert that I got the last one I was supposed to go see was the Marias. That's a totally different vibe. That's a totally different set of characteristics that the listeners hold about themselves. Starbucks keeps coming to mind, endlessly addicting. People wait 30 minutes in line to be part of the Starbucks experience. Have they sold coffee or an image? That's a great point. Similarly is like the new coffee shops that pop up. So like one that just came to Nashville is La La Land. La La Land coffee with the yellow cup or whatever. Is it Emma Chamberlain? I don't know this person at all, but I've heard that she has like a coffee brand now. And so you're buying the image of Emma Chamberlain and her coffee tastes or whatever. When you go to Dunkin' Donuts, a while back there was like a Sabrina Carpenter drink or there was a Meg Thee Stallion drink. So you're going to buy the Sabrina Carpenter drink because you're like, well, I like Sabrina Carpenter or I like Meg Thee Stallion. And so this mass consumption is part of the marketing. So what does Sabrina Carpenter, Pitbull, Meg Thee Stallion, what do they symbolize? Well, they each symbolize kind of their own facet of the public, the mass public's taste. But they also fit into a very big general block so that they can take up a big segment of the population. So what? So that they can market to a big segment of the population. So when Dunkin' Donuts is doing its advertising and they're going, hey, okay, we need a new celebrity drink. We've got 4 celebrity drinks this year that we're gonna do. We need to figure out who those celebrities are going to be this year and market the hell out of that, right? Who do we want? They are only going to choose celebrities like Meg Thee Stallion, Sabrina Carpenter, Olivia, is it Rodrigo? I don't know. They're only going to pick these mega celebrities that have a massive following that appeal to a wide number of people. And you, the consumer, are going to choose this drink because maybe because it looks good, but probably because you know the name Sabrina Carpenter or whatever. And this is just the standardization of the culture industry. So whoever asked if I agree with these things or what my logic is, I think it was RKR, this is something that I agree with. This is something that I totally see as true, that consumption is formulaic. Rodrigo, yeah, have someone market the Oreo chiller real awkward. I'm gonna give you an Oreo chiller at Dunkin' Donuts by Olivia Rodrigo. The bitch had a cookie at Crumble. My kid was like, I have to get the Olivia Rodrigo cookie. Anyways, see, this is what I mean. The heuristics, like you can't escape the heuristics. My kid probably knows more about Adorno and Horkheimer than most adults. She probably knows more about Daniel Kahneman. She still wants the fucking Olivia Rodrigo cookie. It is what it is. I had a bite of it too. Okay, so repetition is reassuring and comforting. In this respect, consumption constitutes a form of propaganda capable of proficiently sustaining the status quo while diverting the masses from their common goals. So this is that false consciousness again, where like Marx and a lot of Marxists are saying that as long as we're caught in this cycle of consumption, we will no longer pay attention to the things that are important, which would be like liberation of the masses and the proletariat. So like half the time you got to work, half the time we're consuming. There's no fucking time for internal speculation or let alone like making a plan for how to fix the shit. There's a long-term debate as to whether or not the above should lead us to conclude that Adorno and Horkheimer are in the business of condemning consumers as little more than mindless dupes. Edwards going as far as to contend that their patronizing view of consumers is a mere Armageddon-like killing off or undermining of the human subject. Yeah, this is kind of fucked up. And this is why I don't like Jameson. So when we were reading Metamodernism, we were talking a lot about Jameson, Frederick Jameson, who is like the precursor to a lot of like Mark Fisher's work in line with a lot of discussion about postmodernism. I feel like Mark Fisher and Jameson are very condescending. And I feel they do this near Armageddon-like killing off of the human subject, saying that affect has disappeared. Now, do I think Adorno and Horkheimer's criticism is that? Not really. I think Adorno and Horkheimer are just pointing out psychological tendencies before Daniel Kahneman did. Intuitively pulling out these psychological tendencies. The same way you think about concerts, others will think about your reading philosophy. No, you're absolutely right, Chai. But actually, it's worse than that. The vast majority of people would agree with you that Pitbull is a good time and that you should go to their concert. My niece is just woke up and she would definitely agree with you. My niece and probably my daughter would both agree with you. I am in the minority here. Like my opinion is small and not very popular. So you're absolutely right. Mr. Worldwide. Exactly. Pearl, can you give us a Pitbull quote? She said, deported to Alaska. Do you hear me talking about Pitbull? Yeah. She does not care. So Lodziak thus questions a tendency to suggest that consumption is produced by advertising in the media, when the position of the Frankfurt School is actually more aligned to an understanding of consumption as the product of alienation and labor, and the impact of this on the organization experience of employment. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here's the difference. Is this a product of labor exploitation, or is this a product of just advertising? Are the two linked? I think they're becoming unlinked. So this was pretty much the subject of our last book, right? We were talking about how AI is pretty much now just a factor. It's very much linked to human labor. And now it's a blatant automation of human labor. That all of our human labor has gone into creating AI, and it is now just basically a standalone avatar of all the human labor that has ever existed. So the question is, what is the culture industry? How is that connected to that? And so that's kind of what they're saying the difference here is. I went to a Lady Gaga concert once with my ex and had a blast. You never know. Yeah, I went to a Nicki Minaj concert. Oh, I can relate to them. I just don't like Pitbull. I went to a Nicki Minaj concert though. I also get super weird at concerts. I'm just a weird person like that. Like, I went to the Kendrick Lamar concert. That's also pretty high. Went to Erica Badu concert. I enjoy concerts. It's just I fucking can't stand Pitbull. I'm sorry, I just don't like Pitbull. There's just certain pop stars you just don't like. I don't like Olivia Rodrigo or Sabrina Gardner. I just don't. I like Winona Judd. I'll listen to Winona Judd. I'll listen to Shania Twain. Like those are old, but I'm trying to think of like new pop stars that I'll listen to. I'll listen to Drake. I just yeah, it's not that I'm like above pop culture. It's just those aren't ones that I particularly enjoy. Do you work in AI? Is that bad? Are you familiar with the Finger Lakes SNL skit? Is that bad? No, it's not bad. What's bad? I mean, what's good? What's bad? I don't know. But Mike, I think this goes to we've had this discussion before. This goes to like critical consumption, right? You working in AI and thinking about this stuff, I think is great. I think it's that's what you should be doing. I think everyone who works in AI or like a very pivotal technology that will change the face of the planet should be asking themselves questions like these. So I think it's dope that you pay attention to this stuff. I don't think it's bad. I work in pharma. Is that bad? Erica is a legend though. She's kind of eccentric. Erica Badu. Erica Badu, she's something. But her music is amazing. I've seen her twice. Shut up, Jared. AI should be subject to democratic control and popular oversight. I agree with you, dialectical menace. And so does the Future of Life Institute and a lot of other institutes. American culture has been on decline since 1993. Well, that's random, Jesse. Okay, let me see how far we have to go in this section. Damn, we still have 5 pages. All right, I'm going to stop some of this commentary and just try to read a bit because I have gotten absolutely nowhere. I've just been yapping, even though I'm fucking tired and didn't sleep last night. Okay, we are obliged to consume goods in order to meet our basic human needs. It is an inability of the capitalist system to organize how we meet our needs that makes the worker powerless, a position that was equally evident in the work of Andre Gores. But what's more important to contemplate for the purposes of this book is the idea that the reinvention of consumption as experience increases and intensifies the parameters within which the consumer is obliged to be satisfied with the menu that Horkheimer and Adorno describe above. One comment, Snowpiercer, you get a gelatinous block of bug protein. Enjoy. For Horkheimer and Adorno, entertainment cannot offer, by the way, my daughter was saying all week to my niece, can we watch Parasite? I really want to watch Parasite. So I think I do have some influence over her for sure. And my niece is like, no, I hate that movie. Who wants to watch that movie again? I don't know. It's like watching Old Boy. Like, how can you watch Old Boy like more than once? Like there's the old boy and then the new old boy, but like beyond that, I couldn't watch it more than once. In the hands of tech oligarchs, it will be a totalitarian nightmare. Yeah, I think dialectical menace. I think you should hang out with us because I think we agree. Um, so entertainment cannot offer genuine escape, for that escape can never be anything more than an escape from the idea that such resistance can be achieved. Oof. And in an echo of Weber's work, even self-preservation becomes self-destructive. Ugh, I need to copy this down because this is part of an argument that I don't think I agree with. And I do like Weber, but I just don't agree with this entirely. I don't think self-preservation becomes self-destructive. I don't agree with that. I think the line between self-preservation and in self-enhancement or self-optimization is being blurred. Returning to the broader point here, what Adorno and Horkheimer do is to consider the psychodynamics of popular mass culture and its role in perpetuating an isolated and atomized kind of individuality. So that ultimately the individual is the result of a set of social relations and not an active participant in the consumption of images that these social relations produce. The world of experience, which we appear to have entered, reinforces the relationship between the two, and in so doing, further enhances the potential for ideological conformity. This is another issue, the one dimensionalization, the ideological conformity. This sense of conformity can be fully understood in the context only of a society that is increasingly geared up to the spectacular economic and cultural possibilities therein implied. This has like when he says spectacular, he means like in the framing of like Guy Debord society, the spectacle. As such, for the purposes of our understanding of the emergence of an experienced society, the work of Guy Debord is worth reflecting upon alongside that of the Frankfurt School. There are similarities insofar as both approaches seek to present a critical theory that puts culture at the heart of debates around the ideology of consumer capitalism. In his seminal work, The Society of Spectacle, Debord suggests that the world has devolved into, see, devolved, there's that word, devolved into what amounts to an immense accumulation of images, that it has effectively become a sequence of commercial fragments detached from original experience. For Debord, spectacle lies at the heart of the capitalist system and plays a key role in ensuring the maintenance of consumerism as a way of life. So the spectacle keeps us all kind of ticking, right? And I did not make this argument about the Empire State Building people, but the one negative thing I will say about it is this plays into the spectacle. So from the neo-lib perspective, what a lot of people are saying, and the thing that irritates a lot of people, is that them climbing up there and doing this performance activism is really irritating to a lot of people because they have become aware of what Guy Debord was saying, that there is this mass spectacle that is created and then used to become a marketing campaign. So the spectacle is used, as Mark Fisher said, as an advertising campaign. And so basically what people see, and it's hard to distinguish, it's maybe even impossible to distinguish the spectacle as fodder for the market as compared to something genuine and real and moving. The only difference, I suspect, and I think this is a key point, is in how we perceive it. The only difference is if we look at it with a critical eye and an awareness of the spectacle that exists and choosing to view it from the perspective of something positive. I should probably make a follow-up video to that because I think that's really important. Now, again, I don't think that's the end all be all of like how we fix shit, but I think that is like getting an eye exam, to use my analogy of knowing that you can't see, okay? Knowing that you can't see doesn't fix your eyesight, but knowing how you don't see can help you figure out whether you made a convex lens or you have an astigmatism or whatnot. So to me, understanding how the Empire State Building climbing could be part of the spectacle is the equivalent of understanding how much magnification you need or whether you need a convex lens for your eyes. It is indicative of what we need to do to fix things in some capacity, at least. It's not the lens, it's not the actual fix, but it is the formula for how we fix things, or at least part of it. Spectacle is effectively the product of a process of capital accumulation. The world in which we engage is effectively the world of commodity. The spectacle can be understood in the context of a debased culture, the rise of celebrity, and the underlying condition of a bureaucratic society. In light of the creation of false conflicts, and as a part of the perpetual reinvention of the commodity form as a denial of individual autonomy. In short, the relation between culture and economy has been reinvented by a shift in the production and consumption of images, so that culture loses its autonomy and becomes nothing more than an appendage to an economic system in which mass production and mass marketing are more fundamental. As Debord puts it, the whole life of those societies in which modern conditions of production prevail presents itself as an accumulation of spectacles. All that once was directly lived has become mere representation. We read about this with Gunther Anders since the 50s. The consequence of this is an objective force in which social relationships between people are now mediated first and foremost by images. What is perhaps most important about Debord's notion that the spectacle constitutes just one moment of the development of commodity production. What is most important? This is just one moment. Okay. In other words, it is less the case that the production of spectacle governs the process of commodity production and more the case that it plays a pivotal role at the point in history which Debord describes. Okay, so the spectacle is, like I said, so this is just basically reiterating what I said, that the spectacle produces fodder for the experience machine, for the relations between people. So now here's the thing that happens, right? So in my comments, if you go over to my Instagram, I don't know how it's doing on TikTok, but TikTok seemed far less critical than Instagram viewers. Instagram and Threads, people had a lot to fucking say. Threads especially. I said something about Japan too yesterday, and people were all pissed off about it. But I don't mind because this means that they are thinking critically. Like, I do not mind this at all. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. What I mind is people being assholes. I don't like that shit. But people have a lot to say about this. And I think this demonstrates that people are starting to see the irritation with my post, with me kind of trying to say, maybe it's okay. Maybe the people climbing the Empire State Building is okay. And people's resistance to it is a good thing. Because to me, that indicates that people are seeing the spectacle and they're balking against it. And they're balking against anybody who is not condemning it. So I'm not mad about that at all. I actually think it's good. One of the most effective attempts to apply Debord's theory is that of Creer and Stewart and Swart, sorry, not Stewart, who argued that the postmodern economy erodes social bonds and replaces them with illusory commodified mechanisms for social solidarity. So that the social world we live in is characterized less and less by social interaction and more by collective inner passivity. Now, let me add a comment to that. Let me pull that from my notes. What about metamodernism? What would the meta-modern economy do? The meta-modern economy might say that we oscillate back and forth, that we oscillate between, like exactly what I'm doing. So what my analysis may be feeding a sort of pre-meta-modern economy where I'm saying like, maybe it's okay. And we oscillate back and forth to basically say like, oh, this is okay, this is not okay. Yeah. In presenting their analysis, Creer and Swart discuss the contemporary relevance of Debord, and in so doing argue that the society of the spectacle is a society of illusion. The more people consume, the more they're disconnected from one another, to the extent that the ultimate effect of the carnivalesque is social and psychological isolation, a kind of permanent dwelling in a socially bereft unreality. So you're definitely getting reported. You want to call me a hoe? You call me a hoe? Let's see, what should we call it? It's harassment or bullying? Yes, I've been bullied or harassed. Bye. Walk. Cool. Thanks for the comments, though. Thank you for the comments. If that's not harassment, I don't know what is. So is he saying that culture is a byproduct of marketing? I think this is worsened when Clinton signed the Defensive Media Act. Defensive media? I don't know shit about defensive media either. See, this is why I love reading with you guys. Defensive Media Act. Then suddenly all our music and movies went to crap. Why original movies are rare these days and rock music is dead. Didn't Plastic Pills do something about this? I don't think they did about the Defensive Media Act, but they also were talking about this. Plastic Pills has a great video on Adorno and Horkheimer. Just in case you're interested. But he's not saying culture is a byproduct of marketing. I think he's saying that culture is co-opted. Now, this is a good question. This is a good question for someone who is not me, someone who is an expert in media theory, and I am not an expert. But that is a great question. Are Adorno and Horkheimer or even Stephen Miles here, saying that culture is a byproduct of marketing, or that culture is subject to marketing or overtaking by marketing? That is a great question. I have to believe that there's this kind of proto marketing that happens. This is the same question that I think Mike was asking. My brain is getting tired. Um, there's a similar question here about ethics and morality. Where do ethics and morality come from? Where does culture come from? And I think there is a proto proto culture. There is a proto ethics. Like, so for example, where's the link between like a dog's behavior towards its pups versus a human mom's behavior towards her babies? We have developed in between those two things a kind of morality that we even think it's objective. Some of us even think that it's objective, that our morality is so important and so true that it transcends everything in the universe and it's objective. But somewhere between dogs or apes and us, we'll say apes and us, we develop that kind of morality. Now, I think culture is the same way, in that culture developed out of predilections and preferences and necessities and these kinds of things. And so, this is a chicken or the egg question. Like, which came first, marketing or culture? Are they inextricably linked? Yes, I think so. And that's all I have to say about that. I don't have the exact answer, but that's where I would say to look. And I'm sure Adorno and Horkheimer have a somewhat of an answer to that. I just don't know where you would find it. That doesn't necessarily mean that is the answer. Okay, so the more people consume, the more they're disconnected from one another, to the extent that the ultimate effect of the carnivalesque is social and psychological isolation, a kind of permanent dwelling in a socially bereft unreality. In a way, it's this very estrangement that sits at the heart of this book. The contention being made is that in a world of apparently ever-expanding opportunities for consumption and self-exploration, a world of ever-expanding opportunities is not only ideologically powerful, but also only partial in the degree to which experiences it provides can serve to fulfill the needs of their author. So it's not just about creating shit. So when Marx says like, oh, we need to create shit to feel fulfilled, it's not even like that anymore. It's like it only really fulfills us partially in this society when we're so tied to this like illusion. As such, the potential for alienating the consumer is ever increased. Experience is thus less about enjoyment and more anxiety-inducing obligations implied by the world of experience, and its focus on achieving an end goal loosely defined as happiness. Ugh. The problem here is that play and happiness are themselves appropriated for the uses of surplus value. Yeah. Think about it this way. When you're on social media, you may be doing this for enjoyment. You may be like, oh, I need to relax. I'm going to do a little scrolling. I'm going to have a little scroll sesh. And the problem with this is that it is now your labor, basically. Like your play is become labor. Your play is become harvest. You know, it's like what you're doing is now a commodity that is owned and used. And that's the problem. They're accessed through work and bought as a form of commodified consumption. It's for this reason that the experience society squeezes the pleasure, the spontaneity out of what it means to be a consumer, and the process intensifies the way in which the consumer's life is lived psychically. For Creer and Swart, this implies a life of envious passivity, of endless promise, but of less and less fulfillment. Damn. That describes why the feeling of scrolling has soured over time. That's exactly why. That's exactly why when you scroll and you get that feeling of like, ugh, why did I do that? That's that endless passivity, endless promise, but less and less fulfillment. There's like a diminishing return on the scroll for sure. Adorno and Horkheimer describe, we could say that the world they describe is nearer to being a reality than ever before. For Marx, the fetishized nature of an exchangeable commodity depends on the maintenance of some semblance of use value to customers. By the way, hi, Calypso. For Adorno, mass culture erodes this necessity. The more inexorably the principle of exchange value destroys the use value for human beings, the more deeply does exchange value disguise itself as the object of enjoyment. This process is further intensified by the experience society, not because it's way more uniform or prescribed, but because consumers are more malleable to the social psychological effects and experiences that speak more to a personalized form of prestige. Yeah, they got it. They got us by the fucking brain. Okay, that's it for today. I will potentially read the conclusion tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., same time, same place. Hopefully I'll sleep tomorrow. But again, if you are not part of the Discord, please upgrade on Substack. Hey, Jay, welcome. I'm sorry, person whose name is in Arabic. I don't know what questions you have asked. If you want to ask me more questions, though, head on over to the Discord and I will try to answer whatever questions I see over there. Um, Again, a little plug for this afternoon at 4 p.m. I will be doing my rabbit hole workshop. Again, we're halfway through the year, so I'm going to be reflecting. I'm going to take a little bit more time to reflect this time around, and we will set some goals for July. And then I'll see you guys Sunday for the lecture on the Eye of the Master, 12:45 in the Discord. Alrighty. Bye. Wow, that was long. 2.5 hours today. Holy fuck.